Okay, this is a very interesting story, and there's a couple different elements to it which I want to talk about. To kind of set the stage, many of you know that there's currently a crisis in Venezuela, and it involves the despotic, authoritarian autocrat Nicolas Maduro. And as a principled progressive, I want the United States to stay absolutely out of Venezuela. And I also want Nicolas Maduro to go, who has ravaged the country. And I want an actual democratic leader, not a puppet of the United States, to come to power and to start working on the difficult problems that Venezuela has to solve for itself. That's my view because I'm a progressive. But in the middle of all of this, there are lots of politics to be sorted out. And one of those elements relates to American companies doing business with the Maduro regime. It relates to hypocrisies of individual American elected officials. There are all sorts of other political issues that are in the mix here. The geopolitical implications of Russia's perspective on what's going on in Venezuela, the Cuban component and the possible legality or illegality of Cuban involvement in Venezuela for a long time, which is another issue that there's some really smart pieces out there that I recommend you read. But in a totally sort of stunning, but also not altogether surprising revelation, given that Trump is involved with all sorts of dirty players, the Miami Herald is now reporting that Donald Trump's company sold a luxury property in the Dominican Republic to a shell company apparently tied to the Nicolas Maduro regime of Venezuela. And specifically, who we're talking about is the second most powerful person in the Maduro government. His name is Diosdado Cabello, or as we would say in Argentina, Cabello, who is under U.S. sanctions personally for allegedly trafficking drugs and laundering money. Now, I will make it abundantly clear, it's not believed that this transaction would rise to the level of criminality because it allegedly took place in 2015 when this individual was not yet under sanctions. But I don't even actually care so much about the brazen double standards. Understand that Trump considers meddling in Venezuela against the Maduro regime as president. And just years ago, he was selling property to people associated with the Maduro regime. We're accustomed to the double standards. There is boundless hypocrisy. It's sort of pedestrian and boring at this point. And we know that Republicans and Trumpists don't care about the hypocrisy and double standards of Donald Trump. So it's like barely even worth discussing. The story here is that this is not rare. What I mean by that is Donald Trump is involved in all sorts of sketchy financial transactions, presumed money laundering of all kinds for individuals in countries that are under sanction at this point in time. So remember, the Trump organization participated in what they appear to have known was a money laundering operation involving a branch of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that worked on getting components for weapons of mass destruction. So again, Iran is terrible, even though they didn't actually violate any of the provisions of the Iran deal that they signed with President Obama. We're out of the Iran deal. Screw Iran. But Trump's organization reportedly involved in a money laundering scheme for the people who are obtaining or working to obtain and develop weapons of mass destruction in Iran. Total blatant hypocrisy, also not rare. Trump has done this before. There's an article in the New Yorker from 2 years ago called Donald Trump's Worst Deal, which outlines a lot of the comings and goings of that Iranian National Guard, Revolutionary Guard fiasco. There are endless projects where Trump and his kids have misled buyers about real estate deals. Look, for example, at the ProPublica article from 2018 called "Here Are the Trump Projects Where Ivanka and Her Dad Misled Buyers." This is a scamster criminal who is in the White House. So, of course, there are dozens of stories like this. And it's not surprising that it involves Russian oligarchs tied to Putin. As I told you earlier in the program, it involves the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And now it reportedly involves Nicolas Maduro's number two guy. We could go even further. I could talk to you in detail, and I think maybe we have discussed this on the program, about the fiasco in Baku, Azerbaijan, which we could do an entire show about what went on with Trump's dealings there. Trump has likely been a criminal as long as he's been a player in New York and world real estate. And if there's anything good that comes from the Donald Trump presidency, because it's basically all bad, it would be that maybe it will expose the level of criminality that Donald Trump's business has been involved in. And if we're lucky, it doesn't seem like this is definitely going to be the case, but if we're lucky, maybe all of these investigations and revelations that come from the spotlight being on Donald Trump as president of the United States, maybe it will let us pierce the kleptocracy of that Donald Trump and the people around him have perpetuated. And maybe somebody will be held accountable at some point for some small piece of these misdeeds that, again, are not rare in the sense that it's not just Trump that does this stuff. Most of the people that do the shady business that Trump has been doing for decades are sort of smart enough, quite frankly, to realize that running for elected office, running for anything where there would be an expectation that you would disclose your full finances, where there would be a spotlight and a magnifying glass placed on what you've been doing in business and professionally, most super rich dudes like Trump recognize they shouldn't go anywhere near politics because this is exactly the type of thing that could happen. We've got an opportunity now with Donald Trump to actually hold one of these sort of gilded families accountable for stuff that tons of rich dudes and gals are doing and have been doing, and almost always are not held accountable for. Make sure you're following the David Pakman Show on Instagram at David Pakman Show while you're there. Follow me. I'm on Instagram at david.pakman. We'll take a quick break, and we have so much more still upcoming on today's show.